Imagine having an AI-powered search engine for candidate profiles from across the open web and even from within your own ATS. Well, that's exactly what HireTool is. HireTool is a global talent platform that serves all recruiters, from small businesses to the world's largest enterprises. And with 750 million plus profiles from over 45 open web sources and channels and 30 plus integration partners, there's literally something for everyone. Recruiters can find more talent with AI sourcing, send unlimited emails, and integrate with your favorite recruitment tools all in one platform. If you're spending hours looking for qualified candidates, underrepresented talent, and updated contact information, then HireTool is probably what you need for your toolkit. HireTool is a platform that helps great recruiters accomplish more every single day. Check them out at hiretool.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Dunn, the podcast is HR Famous. Happy to be joined, as always, by Tim Sackett, getting him in first because there was some drama on our text string.
You have to go back and forth. You can't just always go to me now. Then that would be the opposite.
I'm trying to make up for it, right? I'm leaving Jessica Lee, on the sidelines based on the feedback I got. I'm so confused when it comes to feedback. Like many employees, I just overreact, right? And I'm trying to take care of the one who has felt the insult of being mentioned second. Tim, how are you? Other than insults, how are you?
I'm doing great. We just, we just saw each other this weekend. So
yeah,
great times.
Old hat for us in Miami.
We need to do it more.
Saw Michigan State go in and really just take the Hurricanes' lunch money.
Take them to the woodshed. Yeah.
They just took their lunch money like a big green and white bully out of the north.
The best response from JLee right now would be, so you guys went to a basketball game? That'd be awesome.
Right. College football.
I didn't know what sport, actually, to be honest.
I know. Yeah, I didn't know what sport. That would have been a great comment right there.
All I know is that you guys were seen on the big screen, like someone saw you on ESPN or something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, JLee,
cool.
JLee, I know in weeks to come, you're going to talk to us a little bit about Zillow and some of their HR policies, some of the stuff they're doing with comp in this remote workforce era. And you'll be happy to know. So we're somewhere between Fort Lauderdale and Miami Beach. I think it's Sunny Isles. You'll be happy to know I go on a long run and I get off the beach, not to the bay or harbor or whatever it is. And I start zigzagging. I have Zillow up looking at the values. You ever run like that, JLee?
No, but that's because I'm more of a Redfin person.
Okay.
But
do you ever have Redfin up?
No, I'm too slow. I'm too slow. I would probably pass one house in an entire run that had a for sale sign up. And I would actually rather just pull the flyer from the little box and look at the details there. I'm not pulling out my phone.
Well, if you ever get the chance to run with Katie, not only will he pull Zillow up, he will give you the rundown as you pass houses, as you're dying to actually keep up with him.
No, I'm never running with Chris also because he's taller. I have to take 2 steps for every 1 step he takes. So he's going to call it a 5-mile run. And I'm like, well, according to my watch, I just ran 10 miles. No.
So JLee, the good news is I'm not I could care. Well, I care a little bit about pace, but at this stage of my life, pace is not the thing.
That's relative. What's a decent mile for you? Where you're I don't care about pace.
If I was
it's a
running
6-minute mile.
No, if I was running multiple miles and I was really hauling right now, it would be around 8. Not great, but I'm the captain of the 9 to 9.5 minute mile right now. Just getting out, getting exercise, right? Going long.
Speak for yourself. I'm happy if it's a 10-minute mile. But
the thing is, my point is I could run a 10 to 11 minute mile with you and be super happy because we're just out getting the heart rate up. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You'd be that was a great walk. That was a great leisurely walk I took with you.
JLee, speaking of heart rates, tell me about a time or give me a broad allusion to a time where you made a business mistake in communication via text message. Does that ever happen to you?
This is like a star interview. Tell me about a time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to tell you about a time I made a mistake, but someone made a mistake recently where I just decided to gloss over it because it was funny more than anything. They meant to say big miss about a departure of someone who left the company, and instead it came across as big kiss. And I just didn't. I was like, I'm not going to respond. That's so.
Yeah.
That's
The choice on the other side of that is they always have to wonder if they catch it themselves, do I correct it or do I just let this go?
Yeah.
Because it could turn into like a long string and everybody gets a little more uncomfortable. Tim, what about you? Any mistakes via text?
One big one that I think like taught me like to be very cautious in the rest of my career. And it happened to be to my mom early on when she was still like coaching me. Like, so when I first came, well, I guess not first time, like when I came back to run HRU, she was like, we had this kind of like this transition period of her leaving, me taking over. And it was probably about 9 months in, and I thought I was sending a text to one of my direct reports. Instead, she was also on it. And I'm like, she has no like effing idea what she's talking about.
Right.
I got an immediate phone call.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And Tim, I know you are a Mac user, so you use iMessage, correct?
Yeah.
So do I. What about you, JLee? Are you an
Same.
iMessage lady?
Yeah.
So the thing on that is, to me, like in my experience, you could be having a conversation with two people and about the same thing. It could be on a group text. You could be one-on-one, like with your business partner, your boss, whatever. And the whole Mac thing with iMessage, I'll just speak for that. You can work so fast in that. Like you can work as fast as you type that, man, you're just like, you're a moment away from being like just hurt. Like professionally on that.
Well, you know how it used to be, like when we were in office, you'd have like the conference meeting and then you have the meeting after the meeting with like the one person you want to go, like you want to dump on.
Strategize. Okay. Dump on. I was going to say strategize, but the dump on meeting, of course.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, I can't believe these idiots don't see how we see it. Right. Kind of thing. Now you have that conversation while the Zoom meeting's going. Right. And sometimes you do it on Zoom. Which is dangerous because you could be like, it's just between the two of us. And all of a sudden it's like, it's all to everybody, I mean, I haven't done that, but
it's never happened to you.
It is dangerous. Well, you know what I'm surprised no one brought up though, like in texting things is, I still struggle with like, at what point are emojis not like appropriate in work messages? Like, cause I text people all the time for work, but like, are there emojis that are too weird? Like I used to be very cognizant of the number of exclamation points I use in email. And I tend to like exclamation points because if I'm really enthusiastic about something, I'll stick one, not two, sometimes two if I'm really enthusiastic, but emojis are like the other thing. Like at what point are they not good?
Don't you believe it's like the tone? Like if you're having fun, like celebrating something, like in your leader, sends an email out, emojis are good. When they're announcing like the mass layoff, no emojis, no sad face emoji. Like it's just
no crying emoji.
Exactly. Yeah. Not good then.
Let's go back to exclamation points. Then I'm going to go back to text. But on exclamation points, JLee, so one exclamation point, not two, but do you limit yourself to one exclamation point per email?
Oh, so it depends. I generally don't. What I do not like to do is exclamation point after exclamation point, like 3 sentences all with exclamation points. I'll space them out. But I don't limit myself. Like, I just feel like sometimes people are so serious with like work communications that I like to throw some exclamation points in there. I want people to know I am excited or thankful.
I've caught myself, I use more exclamation points than I ever have. I used to be really down on the exclamation point. I use them a lot more these days, but sometimes when I find myself using like 2 out of 3 sentences, I'm just like, Chris, you big like phony. Stop it. I'm not like projecting that on you, JLee, but that's kind of the way I feel. But I've warmed up.
Did we tell you that Chris coached me a while back on my
exclamation points?
No, it was on commas. I kind of just like take like a handful of commas and just throw them. Right?
Just throw them.
I never met a comma.
Just throw them.
I never met a comma I didn't like. And so he's like, dude, way too many commas. And now I'm afraid to write. Like not for myself, but for him. Like I'm just like he's going to judge me.
That's the thing about feedback, right?
By the way, though, I use
It has to be in a
Grammarly.
safe place.
I use Grammarly on everything I do, and
do
whether it's
you?
FOT or so. I always assume that Grammarly will catch my commas because a lot of times they'll have them take them out or they'll put them in. So now I kind of question. I don't think Katie's very good at grammar because I have a professional AI driven machine telling me where the commas go.
Of course, it's writing how normal people do not talk. So it's kind of the question of, do you want to write like normal people talk, or do you want to be straight up with the king or queen's English or whatever language you're in? But it was a smattering, Tim. There's no way, like if that was approved by Grammarly.
Well, here's what I'll say is I'm a fan of the comma. So
hey, for the good people listening, this was not me giving Tim a hard time about, did you put a comma, yes or no, in front of the and, 1, 2, comma, and 3, or 1, 2, and 3. Wasn't that? It was like,
no, this is hi, comma, my name is Tim, comma, and I can't wait to see you later,
or
comma, tonight,
comma, future, comma. Anyway, hey, so the reason I started out with text is, I don't know if the two of you have caught this in the news, but the Theranos trial with Elizabeth Holmes has begun.
And that's the blood. Like you could test your blood and they'll tell you.
Yeah, bad blood. So for the uninitiated, there's a great book called Bad Blood. You should just go get it. It was written by the Wall Street Journal guy who followed Theranos as soon as there was like a sniff that there was something wrong. But, they raised hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion+ in venture-backed stuff. It's supposed to be like, think about a matchbox-sized thing that was going to prick your blood and give automatic readings. So if you read the book, you'll know that they were faking it until they made it. They rolled it out like in some CVS's, but they were actually not doing the blood test on their own, advertised. They were actually sending them to the same diagnostic shops, and there were delays, and it was just a big thing. Ultimately, there was a whistleblower. And if I can find it as I read some of these to you, there's a whistleblower that blew it wide open. And anyway, the big event I wanted to talk to you about was the prosecutors, in this case, JLee and Tim, spent 10,000 people hours on drudging through the text messages of Elizabeth Holmes and a guy named Sonny, I'll say Balwani. I may not have that right. I'm going to say Balwani. That's what I'm going to go with. Who was her COO and lover.
Lover. That was her lover boy.
Sonny was like 21, 22 years older than the young wizard Elizabeth Holmes at the time. And if you Google this, if you're not aware, first of all, Bad Blood's a great book. If you haven't read it, read it. It's one of the best business books of the last decade. And Elizabeth Holmes styled herself. She was a big black turtleneck wearer. She went right after the Steve Jobs image. So she did everything she could to push it up. Anyway, I want to read you, JLee, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to read you some of the text messages that the government uncovered that they rolled out on day one, just to show that there was a relationship. By the way, Balwani, 21, 22 years older. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You keep bringing up the age gap.
This is like my third time. It's fine. So,
and the number actually keeps increasing. It was like 18, then 20, then 21. Next year, you'd be like, he was like 37 years older than her.
Let's talk about that, JLee, because more interesting than the age difference is the attractiveness difference of Sonny and Elizabeth Holmes. I would tell you that Sonny is not like the founder. He's like that first person brought in. Elizabeth Holmes connected with him, whatever. Let's just say Sonny was out of his area code related to coverage. He outkicked his coverage. Have you seen the pictures? Would you agree with that, JLee?
I would, but here's the thing. I think we all know at this point she's a little crazy, and so it's not like she was a 10 in her right mind. He probably saw like, oh, she's a little like cuckoo, and I can bag
Well,
this, and then he
hey, by
did.
the way, and like everyone has their flavor, right? No judgment. Like I have a
Yes.
person working for me that likes, people who are older. Like, I mean, everyone has their flavor. So
Okay, let me on to the text messages. So the government spent 10,000 hours, and there's a bunch of them coming later in this trial. You can be sure of that. But we've all like found ourselves like maybe a little too loose with the text messages from a business perspective. I think we all know after a couple of decades that email is just getting discovered, right? I mean, that's happening. They're going to ask for that. But people are now, I mean, there's such a personal tone to text, and it's so reactive and it's so immediate. We still have our guard down a lot on text. So here's a couple of the texts. JLee, I'm going to start with you. So the first one's from Elizabeth Holmes to Sunny. Was thinking about you this morning. Okay. Sunny reacts to that. Again, COO, lover, mentor. She said, I was thinking about you this morning. Sunny, we need to stay focused and vigilant. We are lazy and disorganized. Comment, JLee.
Well, so this actually goes back to your piece around like she outranked him, and that he's, let's say, a 4 and she's a 7. He didn't care that she's a 7. That's the thing. Like he's like all business clearly.
confidence. Yeah.
Yep. And the other thing that's interesting here is speaking of his age, maybe there was a little bit more wisdom there for him too, where he's like, look, like I'm here to talk about work. I'm not here to talk about, I was thinking about you this morning. So I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Tim Sackett, I've got one for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Holmes in the black turtleneck, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Probably in the early model Tesla as she's on the 101.
Mhm.
Elizabeth Holmes to Sunny.
Wait, can you read it in her voice though? Do it in her
Didn't
voice.
she had like a kind of a manly voice, didn't she?
Well, but the theory was she dropped it down low, and
She
that
did.
wasn't her real voice. So you got to do it in that
that's
way.
super interesting from a workplace perspective.
So
JLee, why did she drop it down?
Well, I think she was trying to establish authority and not be seen as like this young, fun, cute girl.
Correct.
So read it in that voice. You got to read it in that voice.
Elizabeth Holmes, you are the breeze in desert for me, my water and ocean, meant to only together tiger. Okay, so Balwani comes back to all that and says, okay. Tim Sackett, break it down.
That dude, she was really enamored and in love, right? Like kind of like almost like a childish kind of love, that new kind of love that we all like aspire to get back to once you get older. And he was having no part of it. Like he was like, look, this thing is coming apart at the seams. We got to hold this crap together.
Speaking of which, I'll give you one more and then we'll close up this segment and keep moving. Speaking of which, and this is where the stuff's really going to go down later in the trial as supporting documentation. You can almost see some of these texts, like they're somewhere, I think they're somewhere in the valley. So I'm assuming I would have screens set up if I was a prosecution, and I would run the tweet, or that's not a tweet stream. I would run the text stream just like they do at HR conferences, the really good ones, where they show like the coverage of who's talking. I would just pick like the top 250 like text exchanges, and I would just have them on a loop. And every like 3 seconds, they would change. And I would just keep like doing those. All right. So here's the last one, JLee, for you. Balwani, the lab. By the way, I'll start this over, and I will do the Elizabeth Holmes voice for you so you can really like get into the analysis of this. The lab is the thing that didn't work at Theranos, right? Is where they're trying to develop this technology, and they kept sending it. Tim Sackett, give me like what's a normal lab? I'm blanking on the lab where we send drug screens to. Give me a name.
Finding a great career has always been a challenge. But today, With the massive changes underway in just about every sector of the economy, in just about every country in the world, finding a great new career is even more challenging. And if you're a student, recent graduate, or someone else early in their career, it's even harder for you because you just don't have the experience that those who might be 10, 20, 30 years older than you have. The answer? The podcast. From dorms to desks. A podcast by College Recruiter job search site, where every week we take a deep dive into a topic specifically of interest to candidates who are early in their careers and looking for a great part-time, seasonal, internship, or other entry-level job.
LabCorp.
LabCorp. So their lab was the one that was supposed to have all this like cutting edge technology, but instead they were sending these like blood segments to like LabCorp, like, you know, for the 21 like type of screen. So Balwani, this is a text. The lab is a effing disaster zone. Holmes, later, a little bit of a delay. By the way, Wall Street Journal guy might show up later. And she was likely referring to the journal reporter that wrote the book Bad Blood and was like sniffing pretty hard around this. So JLee, then all of a sudden, that's where all this is going, right? They spent 10,000 people hours on like going through all these texts. How many do you think they have? And also rank my Elizabeth Holmes voice.
Oh gosh. Well, I can't tell the difference between your normal voice and her voice, so I'm a little confused. How many text messages? 10,000 hours? Probably like 300,000 text messages.
Yeah. How many will they use in trial?
Oh, how many will they use in trial? Oh, I don't know. Probably like 1,000 of them. Oh, you think 15? It sounds like there's all this back and forth. I don't know. I'm at a big number.
You get like if you were doing a trial, you know, for anything and you're using text messages, you're going to find a lot of gold, but it's like forced choice, right? You only have so much attention. That's where you're going, right, Tim? You're saying
I was also thinking the exchange. So the exchange might be like 10 or 20 in one conversation.
Like a conversation.
Use, but that's like one, right? And you might only use like, again, 10 or 15 of those kind of conversations to prove points.
I feel like I should have got my Sling Blade voice on just to distinguish between my normal voice. I like them French fried potatoes. Something like that. Okay. Bad Blood.
By the way, I can do a great Sling Blade. So
you want more? Like, go ahead and go more. Read Wall Street Journal guy might show up later. Give us that in the Sling Blade voice.
Oh no, I don't know if I can read it in that voice. I can only do like lines from the movie and that guy. Like when Billy Bob did that.
But by the way, so like on a practical note, I think that like some of the things that I've seen in the past, I don't know, like 5-10 years, I think, you know, everyone knows like email can be discoverable. I just don't think it's clicked for everyone that text messages can be discoverable.
Or Jay, they think like, oh, if I delete the text off my phone, then it's gone. Like, no, it's still sitting on a server somewhere. Like,
yes. So let this be a lesson for everyone. But I do wonder if at a certain point, people are going to start like including their lawyers in a text thread to be like, I'm pulling my lawyer in and now this is a privileged text thread.
By the way, it is, if I'm an HR pro or HR leader and I have an HR team and there's a lot of like a lot of conversations going back and forth on text, this is where you start to jump into, hey, we should get like a WhatsApp or something that we know is going to disappear and be gone versus like, hey, let's have this thing on forever, right?
Snapchat me.
Or maybe just have a conversation.
Just call.
I was how archaic of you. How 50-year-old KD, like coming in with the phone call.
Hey, when you first started this, I bet once a week I start to write an email or a text to somebody in my organization.
Amen. I know where this is going.
I stand up and walk over and talk to them so that there's no like written communication somewhere on what I'm going to tell them.
Tim Sackett coming in hard with the I walk over and tell them something. Let's bring them all back to the office.
I know.
Liability is going to go down. JLee. All right. So we're moving on. Theranos, check it out. Bad Blood. More Sling Blade. Let's keep our eye on this. More Sling Blade style voices coming in. Wish we would have got to that earlier. It hurts that JLee couldn't tell the difference. Two more things to talk about today. Tim, I'll come to you first on this one. So you think about the people infrastructure bill from the Biden administration and the Democrats. So you've got the normal infrastructure. I'll say bridges, roads, blah, blah, blah. They also, the second piece of that was what, 3.5 billion started out with, may not get there, but there's a lot of stuff in the people infrastructure bill that impacts the workplace. I want to cover one of those. We may do more in the future. I want to do paid leave and what it means as part of that people infrastructure bill. And I'm just going to give you the details of the policy. I'm just going to read a little bit from CNBC here, and I'll throw it to you just for reaction. Then we'll go to you, JLee. So the paid leave policy, which would likely be administered by the U.S. Treasury Department of Social Security Administration, would make it so that nearly all workers qualify for paid leave as long as they've earned some wages in the last 6 months. The typical worker would get 2/3 of their wages replaced for up to 12 weeks each year for a cap of $4,000 a month. The lowest paid workers would see about 80% of their income continued during the time off. Part-time and self-employed people should qualify too. Individuals would be able to receive partial wages for 3 days of bereavement leave as part of this, said Michelle McGrain, Director of Congressional Relations and Economic Justice for the National Partnership for Women and Families. So less about the bereavement leave on that last part, more about the paid leave, which sounds a lot like short-term disability, right? From a paid leave perspective. But Tim, what's your reaction to this? It's hard to say that this isn't a bad thing, maybe until you start digging into some of the details to challenge it. But what's your initial reaction?
I'm torn because there's part of me that goes like, we both have, friends in Canada, and we get to hear their stories of their paid maternity leave. And it's all, for the most part, it's women that we know there. And I think, that the U.S. females, and really U.S. families should have that same ability to be able to have some of that. Again, as an HR person and as a business owner, that's where the details are, become the issue of really digging in, because it's a lot of increase in taxes to pay for that. Someone's got to pay for it, right? And right now the administration just is like, oh yeah, corporations and rich people are going to pay for it. Well, guess what? Rich people are rich people. Corporations employ everybody else. And so if you think corporations are just going to pay for it and it's not going to roll downhill, you're just being naive at the very least, right? So it's great to think like we're going to have 12 weeks of paid leave, maternity, paternity, sick, parents, sick family member, whatever. KD, on the bereavement side too, the original plan, so again, we don't know what's actually going to get voted on, had 12 weeks of bereavement as well. And again, I don't want to dump on anybody saying, hey, if you're in mourning and you can't physically work, should you have time off? Yes. Should you have 12 weeks paid time off? Again, I can't judge that. That's why I'm so torn, because I want to be empathetic for employees and for people that are really going through crap, right, and can use this. But
so I need to get research on the 12 weeks of bereavement leave. I need to get research on that. I wish I could text somebody right now and get them on that.
There's just so much money involved, and what we know is other countries that have this. We also know that you're talking 45 to 55 to 60% taxes, and people don't see they're not hearing that. They're just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Jeff Bezos is going to pay for it all. No, he's not. Slow down.
JLee, what do you got?
Well, so like when Tim says it's like 40, 50, 60% taxes in some of these other countries, but that's not just because of paid leave in and of itself. No. It's healthcare. It's like all sorts of benefits, right? So I think the picture, is a little bit more complex than just paid leave. But I will say, like, this is a hard one because I agree with Tim. Like, conceptually, we probably all agree, like, we need to have better leave and a culture around time off when someone has had a child. I think one of the interesting things from like an HR person's perspective is like the idea of a national paid leave policy and program, I think has some benefits as an HR person, where if you're in a multi-state environment today, managing all the different nuances and administering leave in a multi-state environment as an HR person is a pain. That's a headache. It's complicated. Like the first question you have to ask is, well, what state is this person from? What is their policy? How does it work with your short-term disability, your own leave policy? And so I think that like my first HR job, I had to be a leave administrator in a multi-state environment, and it was a pain, and it hasn't gotten better 20 years later. So I think,
hey, by the way,
there's that
Jay,
piece.
SHRM just had a brand new startup tech like that actually does this. This is awesome.
I love
Tilt.
it. That's needed.
Too bad you didn't have that when you were there.
Oh, that was when we were still printing out transparency slides for presentations. But the other thing is, like, from an employer perspective, I do get like this idea of like this potentially levels the playing field, because when you are big, massive brand with deep pockets, like let's say consulting companies as an example, you have the benefit and ability to have these really robust paid leave programs for your employees. And it is a recruitment device. It is a tool, it's an incentive, and people love that. And if you're a small company, like, how do you compete against that? I think it's really hard. I do think I agree how this gets paid for, who's paying for it. Like, that is the real question that has to be resolved. But from like an HR person and employer perspective, I'm like, like I can see like some of the merits to this. And I'll also just use, like, on a personal note, like, I am fortunate enough that at the time at which I had kids, I was far enough along in my career, same with my husband, where I had paid time off banked. We didn't have the best paid leave policy. So I had my own PTO banked. My husband works for the federal government, so he has generous leave. I forgot to sign up for short-term disability in my first pregnancy, so we bridged the gap otherwise. Second pregnancy, I remembered. But like, we had the means to be able to cover it. But if I'm like earlier in my career and not in a well-paying role, like, how you cover that time off, I think, is real. And so as a result, you've got people returning to work after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, which is also crazy. So
hey, Jay and Chris, the one other thing, I think we're the worst people to talk about this as HR leaders, because we also see the worst in employees that take advantage of these programs, right?
Yes.
That are like, oh, well, my grandfather is sick and I need to take care of him. I'm going to take my 12 weeks paid leave. And you find out really granddad, has like a toenail that's infected and they're off for 12 weeks. And like, there's so much like stuff like that happens that we get very cynical about these programs. That I think we're almost the worst to actually ask opinions on it,
So like, my take on this, I agree with a lot of what you both said. My take on this is, I don't know that I want to be in the, like, it's kind of like, first of all, like, JLee, you mentioned the fact that you like thought ahead. By the time you had kids, you were in this better position and you were basically full funded in some way to do this, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I always get nervous when like people who are in really good shape, when the government wants to take over benefit levels for those people. Yeah. It's like one of those things where, if you have a pandemic free lunch program and, the people that are, better off, if they have that benefit, I'm always wondering, well, did we have to spend those dollars? I'm not sure we did. And then the question always comes down, even if you could fund it, what's your confidence level of the Social Security Administration's ability to manage that funding and to make sure that it's fully funded and that, taxes aren't going to come. But like, I guess for me as a moderate Republican, you can get me on board if you say, hey, these folks who are trying to be in the workforce, they're from, let's just say, $7 to $8 an hour, all the way up to $17 an hour. That's our big gap here, where we lose people in the workforce. Those are the people who get hurt the most, especially in single like earner households. You get me aboard on that. Like, I can figure that out.
Hey, KD. So let's say the federal government gets this passed. We have a paid leave program that the government's going to administer. Give me the over under on the number of employees the federal government will hire to administer that program.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, right? That kind of goes into the whole like confidence level. But I think the big message is people from different walks of life, Republican, Democrats, can get on board with patching up the people who are most at risk, especially like when you think about the workforce stats, right? And the problems we've had getting people back to work for a lot of good reasons on the candidate and the people side. Anything we can do to make them more stable as America ages is going to be like a really good thing. So you get me on board for that. It's like, do I need paid leave? Like, are you going to tax me for my paid leave and then you're going to administer like my paid leave? Do I have the same need as some of those other people? I most certainly don't. And I don't know that I want to be taxed for that, either as a corporation or as an individual. I don't know that I want Tim Sackett's leave when he goes and gets maybe a little eye tuck. Like, I don't know that I want to pay for that, JLee. Is that wrong?
Well, so this is where like thresholds and the right thresholds have to come into play. And like it becomes complicated though, because I think like when you have like concept of thresholds in place, you also never know like someone who's near the threshold, above the threshold, what's going on in their life. So if we just said hypothetically, you make $100,000 a year or more and you're not going to get this benefit, like you should be able to cover yourself at this point. But like that person may have, I don't know, caring for aging parent, ill parent, grandchildren. They might have a family in another country that they're having to send back money, to, care for them because of whatever reason. Like you have a child at home who has special needs and it's expensive because we don't have great healthcare systems. Like I think it becomes really tricky. And so whoever these decision makers are that like craft the policy around it and hopefully hire an appropriate amount of people, but not an inappropriate amount of people to administer it, that's going to be a hard job. But my hope would be, there's some good precedent in other countries and, models that we can take a look at to, figure it out.
Okay, I'll get you out of here on this. The plan will be implemented by June 2023, which has been called a very ambitious timeline. JLee, we're gonna get out of here on this. I'm going to play a little. It's not LOA administrator like Jeopardy. I'm going to read you the 9 states that currently have paid leave laws, and I want you to react and give me 2 states that you're surprised that don't. Based on your knowledge, some of this already, like from your almost a decade past, a few years past. You've had a lot of velocity in your career. So here's the 9 states, JLee, that have paid leave. District of Columbia, not a state yet, by the way, but I'll go ahead and
never gonna be, but okay.
California, Colorado, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington State. Those are the 9 states that have paid leave laws. What's missing from that? Like what couple states would you expect would have them?
I know we don't have it, but I'm surprised that we're not there yet in Maryland, because I think Maryland has some pretty progressive laws around and benefits around like family planning. Like, for example, I know some people who've wanted to move to Maryland because of requirements for, healthcare plans to cover like infertility treatments and things of that sort. And so I'm surprised we're not yet there in Maryland. Another state I'm surprised by. I mean, you got a lot of big ones covered there. What
about Vermont? With Bernie?
Yeah, the good old Bernie. That's a good one. Yeah,
Delaware, Vermont.
What
New
about
Hampshire.
You guys?
I would go like Minnesota first. Not first, but I would go Minnesota next, because I think they would be on the cusp of that politically. With what they want to do, close to Canada, right? Let's stop going across the border and showing up at the free clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Tim, anything to add? Florida,
No,
I can't believe Florida's not in there.
Well, especially with all the elder care, but
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're already done with their careers, so they don't need
Right.
paid leave, I guess. All right, so we'll keep our eyes on this. Closing thoughts, Tim Sackett. paid leave, will it remain part of the bill?
I think so. I mean, it's one of the really big things the Democrats want to get through and kind of like, stake their flag to for 2024, right? I think that would be big for them, and I think it's something that they're gonna happen. By the way, I also think like we need to get better. Like, I mean, when you take a look at the rest of the world and where we're at comparable, we should be better.
We should be better with the money we're already spending.
Yeah, that's a whole nother pod. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, I'll say this just as like kind of an in close. So I am blessed to have Mrs. Angela Dunn, and she runs the gamut on all the EOBs, explanation of benefits that come in for our family. And knock on wood, we're healthy, but little things here and there. I would tell you, it's unbelievable the shrapnel that comes through these days on an EOB. Nothing is right, JLee. Like nothing's right.
Mm-mm.
Like, and you have to fight and claw because they're hoping that you just write the check and you don't like compare it against your benefits. Is this your experience as well? I mean,
well, I don't review the EOBs, but my husband does. And yes, there are inaccuracies all the time.
By the way, like there's been lawsuits over a lot of almost every major insurance company because they've trained people to immediately push EOBs to people as a first line of defense to say, hey, you got to pay this because it's not covered, just to see if they will, even though it is covered and they know it's covered.
Yeah, drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's tough. Maybe we could start there. Hey, by the way, like unrelated to the people infrastructure, you've got that wish list, but when it comes to taxes, maybe could you get the total tax bill, the tax changes you're going to have to get, could you get that down by 25 or 30% just by becoming more efficient? I think you probably could. Well, I feel like we solved a lot of things. We solved Elizabeth Holmes and that Theranos trial. We solved paid leave. And with that, for Jessica Lee, for Tim Sackett, until next time, we'll keep being in the background, thinking big thoughts, reading text message strings so you don't have to. Until next time, HR Famous, I'm Chris Dunn. We are out.